Hello there everyone, today's video is all about the CJRS. Remember that in the dim and distant past? Seems like another lifetime ago. Coronavirus, the furlough scheme, coronavirus job retention scheme to give it its correct title. So remember when Rishi Sunak, March 2020, poured tens of billions into businesses so that they didn't have to get rid of their employees, they just furloughed them. So what a lot of SME businesses did was that the actual director shareholders, they themselves included themselves in the furlough claims. And this video is an example of where that came back to bite the director on the ass because of what he did during the time when he was allegedly furloughed. So let's have a little look at this. CJRS director. Okay. So what did he do? Well, he claimed the furlough payments like he did for the rest of his staff. And HMRC did a little bit of an investigation on this thing and found out that this guy, who was the director, had been spending a bit of time on the company Facebook during lockdown, but not a lot of time. But nevertheless, he was on there promoting the wares of his firm, trying to generate new leads, generate business. So he was working for a business purpose when he should have been furloughed. He'd been receiving the money like the rest, for him, like for the rest of his staff from the government, but he was doing some sort of business activity, even though it was nominal. And that may seem a bit harsh. I mean, the guy, let's say he couldn't go out and meet clients or do the 99% of the business stuff that he would normally have done if it wasn't for the fact that we were all in lockdown. But this 10 minutes or whatever it was spent on Facebook was deemed to be doing work, generating business. And HMRC took him to task on this. Now, interestingly enough, what the guy then did, he asked for what's called a statutory review. So just bear this in mind. If you're a taxpayer, which vast majority of you will be taxpayers, at some point in your life or your career, whatever, you may get a challenge from HMRC for whatever reason. And one of the remedies available to you, rather than just go straight to a tribunal, is to ask for what they call a statutory review, which is basically you write back to the taxman and say, can you please hand this case to someone else to look at, fresh pair of eyes on your side, again at HMRC, but I want someone else to have a look at it. Statutory review. And it could come back with a different answer. You know, a different person at HMRC may not concur with their colleagues and say, no, that's fine, Mr. Taxpayer. Or they may concur with their colleagues, in which case you do the next thing, which this guy did, ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. It's a bit like mediation. So we actually sit down and someone independent of both you and HMRC mediates. You sit in a room and try and thrash it out, basically. So again, remember that if you're ever in this situation, before it really goes to court, you've got statutory review and you've got this mediation type process. Anyway, with this guy, the mediation didn't work, so it did go to tribunal. And basically HMRC is still arguing that this guy was doing work even though he spent nominal amount of time on Facebook trying to generate leads and generate income for his business. And HMRC won the case. The tribunal sided with the taxman and they said, look, the only things that the director should have been doing whilst furloughed, which was acceptable, was if he was undertaking his fiduciary duties as a director. So every single director in the land has these so-called fiduciary duties, which are found under common law principles in the United Kingdom. So what are they? Well, it's quite a narrow range, actually. So I've listed them here. So doing your statutory duties as a director is exercising reasonable care and skill, putting the interests of the company first, not, can't even read my own writing here, not exceeding the powers given to the director in the Articles of Association, that's the internal governance document of the business, and not putting the interest of the shareholders above those of creditors in the event of the company being in an insolvent position. So they are basically the statutory duties. So what the tribunal said was, look, if the guy had just stuck to those, fine, but he was actually trying to garner a bit of business on Facebook, and that doesn't count. Although you could actually say, well, look, one of these things, statutory, putting the well-being of the company first. You could argue, well, actually, you know, I was trying to keep the business afloat during lockdown. I needed to be doing something. Anyway, that didn't fly, and the tribunal handed down the fact that this guy had incorrectly claimed the furlough payments for himself when he wasn't just sat on his backside doing nothing. He was sat on his backside on Facebook trying to generate some business. So you might think that's harsh, but you know, that's them's the facts. That was handed down to the tribunal. So I suspect as well there are many thousands of individuals in this situation who, in addition to claiming furlough for their workforce, claimed furlough payments for themselves, but maybe did something like this, sort of kept the business ticking over and did a bit on social media, but this has come back to bite this guy in the ass. So very interesting case, and I suspect there'll be more and more of this type of thing appearing in the press in the not too distant future. HMRC specifically looking at clawing back a lot of this stuff because they spent hundreds of billions. So things like CJRS and of course bounce back loans as well. A lot of banks looking at what has the director done with the money? Have they inappropriated those funds? So there's a lot of comeback now on the money that was dished out 2 or 3 years ago. From those who've dished it out, the government, the banks, they're starting to take a closer look and going after the recipients if they think there's been a bit of foul play involved. So there you go. If you like this video, please do subscribe, and as always, I'll see you soon.